Okay, so our Kiss fandom predates the internet. So I remember back in the day when I really wanted to know what a lyric was, I'd go down to Henry's Music on College Avenue, get one of the songbooks that has like the
Ah,
chords, and they'd
uh-huh.
have lyrics in there as well. But barring that, what were some of the lyrics that you had wrong, really wrong for a really long time? Does anything come to
Oh,
mind?
yeah, the misheard lyrics always one of the fun discussions about classic rock. Everybody knows about, Manfred Mann and Blinded by the Light, revved up like a douche and all that. That's the classic example. But yeah, Kiss had plenty of them. Um, just off the top of my head, I so one of them was in the song "Satan Sinner" off of Creatures.
Okay.
The line is uh, "You're a saint, I'm a sinner. The deuces are wild. Better wake up, it's break up. I ain't got the time."
Uh-huh.
When I was young and I didn't have the lyrics, I heard it as "Better wake up, Miss Baker." I'm like, who the
I
fuck
love
is Miss
it.
Baker? Who's Miss Baker? I don't. Why am I just learning about her? I don't.
Was she in Gene's book? Was she a Polaroid
Probably.
in Gene's
Yeah.
book?
What about you?
Well, two come to mind. One is I didn't even have a wrong lyric for the opening lines for Sweet Pain. I just had no idea what he was saying. But my favorite example was Cold Gin because forever I thought that he said the girl next door has lots of rum, which is probably, given the context of the song, a better lyric than what was actually there. But it wasn't until years later when I saw Ace sing it that I got the actual lyric and I felt like a complete idiot.
The girl next door, her lights are out. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the girl next door had lots of rum, but I mean, you're in the mood for gin, I guess, either way, you're SOL. But yeah, speaking of when you talked about Sweet Pain and not even knowing what the first line was, yeah, unintelligible lyrics, that's a whole nother category. And I can definitely think of one off the top of my head, and that is Not for the Innocent,
Okay.
where I think the second line is bad habits drip like honey.
hmm
And all I ever heard was bad habits. Because I only had the cassette, which didn't come with the lyrics. I didn't have the lyric sheet. But I will tell you one thing. Speaking of lyric sheets, that's really funny. If you ever get any of the Japanese pressings on vinyl, a lot of times they'll come with lyric book. They actually come with like a nice booklet that usually has like liner notes all in Japanese, and it'll have like all the lyrics like translated in Japanese, but it'll also have all the lyrics in English. But I'm pretty sure whoever writes the lyrics in English is just doing their best to go off of what they hear. And these are not, no disrespect whatsoever, but these are not native English speakers. So when you're trying to transcribe Kiss lyrics and English is not your first language, you're going to run into some stuff.
Is there an
So
example? What comes to
yes,
mind?
yes, there is because actually the only Japanese pressing I have is Rock and Roll Over, which is really cool because the Japanese version is like a gatefold and it's got a cool live photo on the inside. And the the line in Mr. Speed, I looked through the whole thing, and the line in Mr. Speed, which as we know is uh, uh, "You ain't enough lady to keep the master satisfied." In the in the lyric sheet on the Japanese pressing says, "You ain't enough lady to keep the mast at daddy's side."
Which is worse? I don't even
It's
know.
way worse. I don't even know what that means, but it's better than that habit.
Welcome everybody to episode 7 of the Rip and Destroy podcast. We've got a really fun idea for the show today, but before we get into that, a couple quick housekeeping items. I've got one. Did you have a couple?
I have one little correction from last week, yeah, or last episode, I should say, when we were talking about. Um, I said something about Kiss doing covers. We were
hmm
talking about our live sets, and oh, it was when you brought up that they should do
The
rock and roll
Ramones.
radio. Yep.
Yep.
And then I said that there is a precedent for that because they used to do a couple of covers, and I think I said won't get fooled again.
hmm
Um, in the '80s, what I meant was in the '80s, they used to do Communication Breakdown by
That's
Led
right.
Zeppelin.
Yep.
Yes, but previously we had been talking about them sticking part of "Won't Get Fooled Again" into "Lick It Up" and whether or not we agreed with that decision. But what I meant to say was communication breakdown. That's what I was thinking of. So um, That's all I have for upfront stuff. What do you got?
I could be completely wrong, but it, on Paul's first solo tour, didn't he do a Zeppelin cover? I'm pretty sure he did on the
Probably,
'89 tour.
probably.
So the only other comment I had about the episode last week was today I was watching Kiss Unplugged, and because I don't have a VCR anymore, I was watching it on YouTube, and that sends you down the rabbit trail of Kiss videos. And I came across a really cool clip of Bruce Kulick. It's a modern interview talking about the Unplugged show on MTV.
Hmm.
And he said, and I quote, "I know for a fact that Paul Stanley never sang better. It was just amazing what he did vocally," which I interpreted to be his endorsement of your pick of Paul, 95 as your be all end all greatest frontman for the band.
Oh,
So
that's good to know. Thanks, Bruce.
good looking out, Bruce. So today we're going to
Right
do
on.
something really fun, something we've been talking about for a while, which is basically just show and tell.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what TJ brought to the table. He has no idea what I brought to the table, but I love the idea because I always loved show and tell back in school. And thinking about it, the last time I ever did it was the last day of school on fifth grade. That's all we did. We just did show and tell. And I kid you not, you know what I brought? 1985, last day of school, fifth grade. I brought the book from the originals. It
Nice.
was the one that had uh, the cover that had the rock and roll ball at the Hotel Diplomat
Hmm.
flyer. And it was a
Hmm.
really cool book, and I brought it. And I remember I had it in the cafeteria, and somebody said they wanted to borrow it. I'm like, dude, it's the last day of school. I'm never going to get it back.
Right?
No.
Right?
So,
What are you thinking?
and then fast forward until today, we get to pick up where we left off and do another round of show and tell, which should be fun.
Yeah, cool. And I have a feeling this is going to be one of those episodes that we'll probably revisit this. So we'll call this like show and tell volume one or something, because I'm sure this is something that we'll probably pull out maybe when we run out of ideas for for episodes. Not to say that we're running out of ideas. We still have a list, but this will be a fun one to do. So I've got basically two things to show. I don't know what you brought
I got two.
to school
You
today. You
you want
got
to kick
two?
it?
All right.
Yeah, you want to kick it off?
Um, oh man, I don't know. Should I kick it? Should I just start or should you?
Okay, let's handle this like
All
men.
right.
What do we got?
All right, yeah. One. Wait, there's
All right.
lag.
Okay.
One.
All right, you win, you pick.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
So, I don't know if we're gonna leave that in or not. It's kind of funny. Okay, so for my first thing for show and tell, I actually have 27 things to show for my first thing for show and tell. Right there.
Look at that.
This is 27 of the 29 original Kiss singles on Casablanca. So when they came out with that reissue box set in 2012, it was $250, and me not knowing anything said, I wouldn't, I see Kiss singles all the time in antique shops and record shops and everything. And I bet I could get all the originals for $250 if I hunt them down, and if I'm patient. But that was before I knew things. And so um this is 27 of the 29. Starting all the way with, I do have the first one, which is Nothing to Lose,
Mm.
uh, backed with Love Theme from Kiss. And then we go through Kissin' Time, backed with Nothing to Lose. Then what else? I do have one reissue in here. So actually, this is 28 of the 29, but one of them's a reissue. I'll go over that. But yeah, I've got all the rest of them are all original. Some of the more notable cool things are um, I've got Come On and Love Me, which has the original.
Oh,
It
look at
has an
that.
original yeah, jukebox tag in it. Um, then there's I'm not going to go through all of them because, if you're a nerd, you already know this. And if you want to know this, you can look up the list. But Shout It Out Loud was on a blue label first, just like the Destroyer. There were only two of them were in picture sleeves. Um, One of them being Flaming Youth with the original Ken Kelly cover. The back has the previous four albums on it. Um, Going through them, I've got the so two of them are Detroit Rock City on the A side with Beth on the B side.
Hmm.
After which they released Beth on the A side with Detroit on the B side.
Very cool.
Um,
Very cool.
yeah, so whatever else, Hard Luck Woman, Christine 16, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and then I've got all the ones from the solo albums. Got Hold Me, Touch Me. Peter did two singles. I've got both of those.
Hey,
Um,
you sent me one of those too. Thank you.
I think I did, yeah. Um, some of the later ones do get a little tougher to find. Um, there's Shandy with She's So European on the back.
I love that
Excuse
song.
me.
I don't love that
Which one?
album, but I do love Shandy as a song.
Do you love Shandy? Oh, I was
I
gonna say
do.
She's So European. I like that one a little better. And then also from Unmasked is Tomorrow with Naked City on the back. Um, and then World Without Heroes, backed with Dark Light. And then they ended it with their the only other picture sleeve, which was I Love It Loud,
Oh, look at
which has
that.
the cool loudest band in the world photo on the back, which I always loved. So then the two that I'm missing are Strutter, which was I think that would have been their third single, I think, um, which was backed with 100,000 years, as you know. The reason I don't have that one is because that's like a $200 record by itself. There's one on Discogs right now for like 197 or something. Maybe it was 179. I don't know. Um, so there's that one's a really expensive one to find. Um, and I mean, I suppose I could get the gold version for 50K,
Just for a
but
little more.
as,
Yeah.
as you said, it doesn't even have 100,000 years on it. So I mean,
That's
what's the
the
point? You know,
60K version.
right? Well, that's only a 5 inch record too. It's not even a 7 inch.
Huh.
Yeah.
And the last one that you don't have, if I'm not mistaken, it's almost literally impossible to get a hold of.
Yes, and it's your favorite song. It's Let Me Go Rock and Roll, which is backed with Hotter Than Hell. It's the only single they did off of Hotter Than Hell. And yeah, from everything that I've read on the Kiss vinyl collecting groups and everything, there are only like maybe two or three known copies of this record floating around in collections. So that is the one that I do have as a reissue. This is the one that came in the 2012 reissue box set because that obviously somebody parted out and sold them separately on eBay.
Mm.
It's got the blue label on it. It's backed with Hotter Than Hell. And I bought the reissue because unless I get lucky and I find an original, in a big stack of 45s, if I feel like digging through them at a thrift store or, at a garage sale or something, I'm probably never getting Strutter or Let Me Go Rock and Roll. So I came close. I
I
came
don't,
close to my goal, but no cigar. But you know what? That's okay because this is a pretty nice stack.
that's a badass collection. And you're $200 away from what I would call a complete collection because Let Me Go Rock and Roll, that one doesn't really count. So,
Well, I mean, obviously it's a Grail record, yeah, but
yeah,
um, and I'm not spending $200 on a single. Sorry,
gotcha.
not doing it. Let alone 50K. But I don't know.
Very cool.
Do you think 50K for a 5 inch record? Do you think if it was 7 inches, it would have been 70K? Is like 10 grand, 10 grand per like circular inch? Is that the going rate of gold or something? I
I,
don't.
I think if there was a way to get $70,000, they would have done it.
Oh, they would have. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They would have put 10,000, 100,000 years on the back. That's for sure. So okay, that's my first thing is my little stack of records that I can go and play on my little record player.
Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Great
What
one.
you got?
Okay, my first one, I have to talk about the Migos, these guys right here.
Yeah, you do.
And I brought Peter over with me to take a look at because the
Nice.
story was fun. I'd wanted these for a really long time. Being
Uh,
a toy collector, being an action figure collector, growing up with the Star Wars figures and G.I. Joe and, wrestling figures and stuff like that. It was, for me, it was a holy grail, something I'd been looking for a long time. And it became a little more difficult when they reunited in '96 because then everything got more expensive and whatnot. So back in '96, I was living in Longview, Washington. I just moved there to go to school and they had tiny town Longview, and they had an antique store at the mall. Really cool antique store, and I got to know the lady that owned the store because I would buy like old Sammy Davis Jr. flyers from his Vegas shows. She had a lot of
hmm
really cool Sammy Davis flyers and stuff. And just chatting with her one time, she's like, "Is there anything else you're looking for?" So I thought, on a whim, I'll just ask. I said, I'm trying to track down the 1978 Mego Kiss figures. And she said, let me check. And I didn't hold out a lot of hope because this is Longview, Washington, and who knows. But she called me
Right.
back a couple days later and she's like, I got him. Do you want to come take a look? I'm like, absolutely. So I go and she pulls these out. She's like, I knew a lady who had these in like an old lockbox. and she'll let them go for like 350 bucks. And at the time, they were selling for anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 because of the reunion. And she took them out, and not only were they mint in box, they'd literally never been taken out of the box. They still had the
Oh,
the little bread twisty ties and whatnot. And at the time, I was going to school. I had a part-time job at Burger King just so I could have gas money to get back and forth to school. But as cool as she was, she actually let me put these things on layaway.
nice.
And I would just chip away at it every couple weeks, 20 bucks here, 50 bucks here. And then the day came, 350 bucks. I got to take these things home.
Oh,
So I went to pick them up. It was the coolest thing. She hands them over. And the fun part was, she's like, if you like Kiss, you're gonna love this. And she hands me one more, figure from the 70s, and she says he's anatomically correct. And I'm
what?
like, but I just spent 350 bucks on the Kiss figure, so I'm like, thank you, but no. So
Wait,
so I
wait, what was that?
actually Frank Zappa has a song about the gay Bob doll from 1978.
Oh, it was a gay Bob doll?
It was,
Oh,
which
that's
is actually
hilarious,
which is
dude.
actually cool because, it's cool because of the Frank Zappa song Cyborg for one, and it's also cool because that was the very first one, and representation is important, and
That's right.
so that was cool. But that said,
Nice.
I didn't pick him up that day. But the worst part was I'm walking these, I'm walking my uh figures out to the car, carrying them like a newborn child, scared to death,
Uh,
something's going to happen to him. And I kid you not, I reach for my keys to unlock the door, and Paul slides off the top and in slow motion, ass over tea kettles, tumbles down to the
no.
parking lot. And it did not get any damage, but
Uh,
there's that.
oh,
So
good. Wow.
that's
I
my
know.
first item.
I was under the impression, I think, all these years that you actually got the job at Burger King to pay for the Kiss dolls.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I also
Okay.
needed gas money, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because I remember that. Because didn't you already have a job and then you got like an extra part-time job to pay for
No,
the
I was
Kiss dolls? No.
going to school full
Okay.
time. That was it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Well worth it.
Absolutely, yes.
Because I
It's
worked at
still
Burger King too when I was a kid, and that shit sucked. But if you got a full set of mint and box Kiss Mego figures out of it, worth it.
agreed. Agreed.
Nice.
That's my first one.
Cool. All right. So for my second item, it's another multiple thing. It's two items. So, and I meant to go get some proper little cases for these, but I have these.
Oh, that's right.
These, yeah, I remember. I don't know if you remember me telling you about these.
I
So
do.
these have a story behind them. So, as you know, one of my favorite places on the entire planet Earth is New Orleans. And um, these are what you call throws. Okay. So during Mardi Gras in New Orleans, when the parades roll by, they're chucking stuff out at the crowd, right? They're chucking obviously like beads, but they also have like little trinkets and toys and stuff. And these are Mardi Gras throws from 1979. On the front, they have, I'll send you a picture so you can put up a nice clear picture of them. But on the front, they have like the rock and roll over, basically the rock and roll over art.
Hmm.
And they say Kiss on the top and 1979 on the bottom. And then on the back is this kind of Mardi Gras design, the fleur-de-lis and everything. On the top, it says the word Endymion. And then down on the bottom, it says Token of Youth, New Orleans Mardi Gras. So Endymion is the name of the Mardi Gras crew. So there's different crews, and spelled Krewe, that put on the different parades, right? And Endymion is one of the big ones. They're one of the what you call a super crew. So Kiss was supposed to um, ride on the Endymion parade in 1979, um, but they canceled it. So it never happened. So I don't know if these throws, these little coins, actually got like, I don't know if they actually ended up throwing them out or not, or if these ended up like, being manufactured and never used. Um, so the story behind that was there was a police strike at the time in 1979 in New Orleans. And so Kiss was concerned about basically the short version of the story was Kiss was concerned about their security in being at Mardi Gras, being on a float and everything, and then playing a concert afterwards or whatever. And the story goes, their road manager at the time, um, shoot, I forget his name now, but uh, apparently he received a call from uh, an well anonymous person maybe, but he received a phone call saying something like, "Hey, my name's Joe with the New Orleans Police Department. We know who you are. We know you're planning on coming, and if you think you're going to break the police strike, you're going to be sorry." And he's like, "Yeah, whatever." And so he's like, "Well, if they're not going to provide security, we'll just hire our own security." So he goes to check into his hotel as Kiss arrives, or like before Kiss arrives, probably several days earlier. And the story that he tells is that as he's about to check into his hotel, a bullet hits the building right above his head, and he doesn't think anything. He doesn't really. I don't know how that happens, and you don't think anything of it. But
Hmm.
apparently, he checks into his room, and his hotel room phone rings, and a voice says, "We told you not to come down here." And so he calls up Gene Simmons and says, "Yeah, you guys are canceling."
Hmm.
So how much of that is true and how much isn't, I don't exactly know. It's a good story. I do know that they canceled due to lack of security because of the police strike. So they did also produce T-shirts. I would love to get a hold of one of those.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure those were never distributed. Now, these are pretty cheap to find on eBay and pretty plentiful. So again, I don't know if they were thrown out to the crowd and people still have them, or if they, sat in a warehouse and people got a hold of them, because there's also a 1983 one, because they were all supposed to do a show at the Superdome and also ride in a parade in 1983. Canceled the parade again. They did not ride in the parade, although they did play the show at the Superdome. Um, that 1983 throw, they have another one that's got like Vinny and Eric on it
Okay.
in makeup because it was for creatures. That one, there are far fewer of them on eBay and they're a lot more expensive. So again, I don't know if they just didn't make as many, if those got thrown out and people threw them away over the years, or I don't know what the story is there. So there is that one. I would love to have that one. And then the happy ending of the story is that in 2017, Kiss finally did get to ride in the Endymion Parade. They rode the last few blocks, and then they headlined the Endymion Party, which the big crews always have a big extravaganza at the end of their parade, and they headlined that show. So after almost 40 years, they finally got to be in Mardi Gras. But these two throws are an interesting piece of Kiss and New Orleans history that kind of never happened.
Were there throws for the parade they actually did?
I think they had cups. I don't
Okay.
think they had little coins like that. So I haven't tried to find any of those yet. But yes, they had something. I know there's a photo I think I saw of Gene throwing out some cups. So
That is really cool. It's a cool collectible, but more importantly, it kind of ties together your love for New Orleans and also for Kiss.
that's
That's
why I
really
had to
cool.
have them. That's why I had to get
Absolutely.
them. Yeah, and there's
Right
and
on.
some cool, interesting history too.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah,
Right on. Very cool. Okay.
your
So,
turn.
so for my second item, it's this picture right here. This is a picture of me and Peter Chris. So throw
Oh
throw that
yeah,
up.
that's right. Yeah,
So for
dude.
me, that's absolutely everything. So my love for Kiss began with, the trading card that I got. It was a picture of Peter Chris, and to me, it was the be all end all coolest thing in the world, and made me want to be a drummer, and went on to play drums and whatnot. And so they say don't meet your heroes, and more often than not, that's true. But when I met Peter, it was fantastic. He was super cool. It was on Saturday, October 4th, 2014, at the Mad Monster Convention in Seattle. And not many people went to the convention, and there was a lot of really cool people there. At least people that, I was excited to meet. Rowdy Roddy Piper was there, who was amazing.
Awesome.
A story for another time. Marky Ramone was there. Wednesday 13 was there. I'm a big Wednesday 13 fan. I'd seen him
They're
probably
cool.
definitely. And I'd seen him, I think, 4 times. And he was kind of a friend of a friend, so I got to hang out and chat with him for a bit. And we
Nice.
talked about, Alice Cooper mostly because the first time I saw Wednesday, he opened for Alice. But the cool part about that was, it's me, it's him, it's our mutual friend, but we're all just geeking out because Peter's there.
Nice.
So it's not really about, hanging out with Wednesday 13 because he's as excited to meet Peter Chris as I am. So we're talking about his old Kiss lunchbox and stuff like that. And so for me, it was a really, really big deal, and I was kind of nervous about it. So the way it works is you buy your ticket, you say, I want to get something signed, I'd like to get a picture, and then you wait in the hallway because he doesn't have a booth. He's got his own room. He's got this big room. So when you go in, you just kind of go in one at a time. So you wait your turn, and then I see the table at the far end of the room. It's him and Gigi, and there's the man. So like, what do you do? What do you say? My mouth is dry. I walk up with my history book, and what I said was, "This must be what it felt like the first time you met Gene Krupa." Because, Peter, obviously huge Gene Krupa
Ah,
fan, took lessons from Gene Krupa. So he goes on to tell me the story about the first time he met Gene Krupa, which was really super cool.
was it
Signs
at a
my
Mad Monster convention?
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, sorry, no, no. When he met Gene, that'd be great. And he told me a story about like when he first met him, they were wearing lab coats or something. I don't remember all the details. And then he came out, around the table so we could take the picture. And I'm rocking one of your t-shirts, of course, because I was thinking about you that day. I wish you could have been there. And I kind of did the hover hand. I just wanted to, I wanted it to be a good experience no matter what. So we got a great picture. And that in and of itself was all fantastic. Signed my history book. I got to meet my hero. He was super cool. We had a good chat about Gene Krupa. And I'm walking away. And this is when it just turns completely unreal for me. And this is a story that I like to include in pretty much every conversation I have, if at all possible,
Mhm.
because I'm walking away and I kid you not, Peter says, wait a second. And I turn around and he says, come here. And he goes in for the hug. I kid you not.
Damn.
Peter Chris, he gives me a hug and he says, don't forget to get screened for breast cancer. Because, as you know,
Right.
Peter Chris is a breast cancer survivor. And I thought that was just really cool and really very genuine and meant the world to me. And I want to pass that on to everybody listening too. Early detection saves lives, saved my wife's life. She's a breast cancer survivor as well. So do get screened. Don't miss out on your screenings. But for me, like the man gave me a hug and it was so unbelievably cool. So
That's cool,
yeah,
man.
it makes me smile to this day. So
Yeah. So your show and tell item is a hug from Peter Chris.
there it is.
Awesome.
Okay, those are some of the things we have. And like you said, we're going to pick this up down the road and share more things from our collection. But I got a question for you we hadn't talked about.
What?
What are you looking for? What's left? What's something that you would love to see on that shelf behind you next to the Funko Pops?
The the Funko Pops that somebody on this podcast sent me
That's
very
right.
generously.
And
Thank you very much, sir.
they glow in the dark. You're very welcome.
So I'm told. Um, Man, that is a good question because I'm not honestly a real active collector anymore of Kiss stuff. But I think just off the top of my head, I would love to find some issues of Come On fanzine from Japan. It was like one of the first fanzines from the 70s. And obviously we're both big fans of fanzines, right? Because that's what
Right.
brought us here today. But yeah, some of those really early Japanese fanzines from the 70s would be super, super cool. Um, there's actually a recent item that I'm kicking myself that I didn't get when they came out with all the Hotter Than Hell merch for the Hotter Than Hell anniversary last year. They
Yes.
had this kick-ass hoodie with like this big print of like the cover on it and the big Kiss logo and the band from Hell in Japanese on the sleeves. And I slept on it and I'm kicking myself because it was a cool ass hoodie. So if I find one of those on eBay, I might have to pick that up. Um,
I really like the Creatures hoodie too. I was going to order that. I didn't.
yeah,
I'm sure it's a lot harder to get right now.
yeah.
Well, one thing, again, I don't collect nearly as much as I used to. I'm more into collecting vinyl and more
Hmm.
into
Same,
experiences and going to shows and stuff like that.
same. Yeah,
That said, if I could grab one thing, I would love to get a hold of an Eric Carr drumstick, one that he
nice.
actually used and threw out to the crowd. I see them on eBay, but they're always really expensive. But to me, that would be really special.
I think you mentioned that in the zine, didn't you?
I did. I'm still
You
looking.
did. You were hoping to find one at the convention in '95, and there was none to be had.
Yep.
Yeah.
Still
Um,
looking.
Actually, I think my holy grail is Kiss Meets the Phantom on Laserdisc.
Nice.
I need that, and it's expensive among in both the Kiss collector scene and the Laserdisc collector scene. So I'm kind of screwed, but it goes for several $100s. So if I could dig one of those up, that would be a grail piece for me.
Well, if this podcast ever becomes our full-time job, the fact that it's called Rip and Destroy means that buying that would be a tax write-off and an
There you
investment.
go. I like it.
Uh,
Like the way you think, brother.
well, I'd like to know what you guys are thinking. What do you have? What are you looking for? You can track us down. It's Rip and Destroy Podcast on Gmail or Instagram. Love to get your comments. Love to get your thoughts.
Yep, sounds good. Anything else?
That's my list.
Same here. All right. Have a great night, buddy.
Thanks for hanging out. Cheers.
All right. See ya.
Kill the power, Phil. Kill the power.